listening to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachael Hersher.
On a glorious work vacation, in another time and place that I'm dreaming of now that we are solidly anchored into another school year, I dragged two of my kids on a press trip with me to Europe, on board Royal Caribbean's Symphony of the Seas. To say it was amazing is an understatement. This also happens to be the magical place that we all met the Slyfox family, whom we instantly loved. We ended up spending quite a bit of time together on the ship, as well as riding paddle boats that, might I add, had water slides on top in Cassis, France, touring the streets of Rome and Florence, eating all the things, and basically living our best life at sea. We're obviously back now, but we had more to talk about, so I've pulled Hannah Slyfox on the show. You'll get a peek into the life of a famous YouTube family, dish on their crazy fast courtship and marriage, and talk all things parenting out in the big wide world of social media. Enjoy this episode. Today, we're talking to Hannah Brown of the Slyfox family, also known as Hannah Slyfox. She is the co-founder of Slyfox Threads, the queen bee of the Slyfox family on YouTube with a measly 1.5 million subscribers. And probably most importantly, Hannah is the mother of my 16-year-old son's new best friend, Caspian Slyfox, who is 6. Welcome to the show, Hannah.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I got to get better at saying Slyfox fast.
I know. It's actually really hard. It took me a while too. So I just practice, Slyfox.
People will never know how many edits were involved so that I would say Slyfox without stumbling over my tongue.
That's awesome. It's like a tongue twister.
Yes. Okay, can we talk really fast about cute Caspian?
We can. Let's do it.
I love him. So Caspian told my son that when they grow up, they should grow their hair out, move to the mountains, and grow some really cool beards and have pet huskies, a hot tub, and hunt and do other guy things.
Become mountain men.
Yes.
It was so funny. And today he was actually talking about him because he actually calls him Juicy. So today he was like, I was telling him I was going to do this. And he was like, oh my gosh, I miss Juicy. And I was like, wow, okay, that is so funny. They're totally best friends.
They are. So my son's name is Josh, and Joshy quickly turned into Juicy, and now we call him Juicy.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
But my favorite thing is that my daughter, who was with us too, Addie, he started calling Addie Erica.
Erica and Juicy. I don't know. That's pretty good, right?
It was so random and so good. So your daughter, Jaden, and my daughter, Addie, asked if they could come along to this mountain adventure. And Caspian said, no, you guys can get trailers and live somewhere else.
Oh my gosh, he did not. Did he really?
He did. It was so awesome.
That is so funny. He's like, no girls allowed.
Yeah, it was amazing.
At least while he's young.
Okay, so the way that we all came together, about a month ago, I dragged my 2 teenagers along with me on a press trip to Europe with Royal Caribbean on board their new ship, Symphony of the Seas. And so we're sitting at dinner one night at my most favorite restaurant on board. It's called Chop's Grill. And might I recommend the New York cheesecake, which I ended up.
Oh, that was good.
Did you get that?
I watched you eat it, if that counts.
Yeah.
But I was actually just thinking that is where we all fell in love. I remember seeing you and I was like, that's it. We need to be friends.
It's over.
Let's be friends.
It's over. And for the record, I ended up ordering that cheesecake for room service 4 of the 7 nights that we were on board.
Oh, I remember that. You drug your kids down there again to get cheesecake.
Yeah. I think that cheesecake is responsible for the food baby that I left the ship with.
Oh, what food baby? I think I gained 20 pounds just being on the ship. I don't know. It's the water weight. It was the water weight.
It was totally the water weight. That's the best excuse I've ever heard.
All right.
And the best part is my kids were eating. They were literally, if we'd go to a restaurant, they'd order every single thing on the menu because when you're on a cruise, the food's included, right? So they just went hog wild.
It's terrible. Yep, they just went all in. I mean, their frozen yogurt that was everywhere was like a trap. I feel like that was a setup. Every time I'd walk by, it was calling me. So I would just go get one every second.
They'd have 10 a day. So we did a weigh-in when we got home.
No.
Because my 2 were obsessed with I'm going to gain weight because I've got a 16-year-old son.
They probably lost.
My 16-year-old son who's I'm going to bulk up. I'm going to play football. He did not gain 1 pound.
Oh,
Addie, the 14-year-old, lost 2 pounds.
Oh.
And I gained 6.
That's how it goes. Oh my gosh. Gosh, that's what I'm saying. It's the water weight.
Yeah, it was
just blame it on
totally
that.
The water weight. So when we were sitting next to you guys at dinner, here's the deal. I'm not big on YouTube. I don't watch a lot on YouTube. So to be honest, I had no idea who you guys were.
It's okay. I love you anyways.
And I love you even more.
Okay, good.
So my 14-year-old daughter almost died in her seat because she's like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting next to the Slyfox family.
And your son's like,
Yeah, he didn't know either, but all her friends were like, you are the luckiest kid on the whole earth.
oh my God, that's so cute. I love it.
Before we talk about you guys and what you do, let's do a really fast travel segment.
Okay.
Because I would say we've traveled a bunch. This is one of the coolest trips we've ever taken.
Yes, it was actually the best. I mean, we were newbies to international travel like that to that extent, but that was incredible. We had a blast.
Yeah. So for those listening, you may have followed along on social media. About a month ago, we were on board with Royal Caribbean on their new ship, the Symphony of the Seas, and we did a Mediterranean itinerary. So we went from Barcelona to Mallorca to Marseille, France, and then through Italy. And it was so cool.
It was awesome.
You guys are first-time cruisers. What did you learn? Like, what do other first-time cruisers need to know?
Okay, so I do feel like this is actually really important. So we have not ever cruised before. Like Andrew and Jaden get pretty motion sickness. So it was kind of in their head that if they went on like a ship, they would just be sick the whole time. And I learned that you cannot call it a boat because you can actually fit a boat inside of a ship. So we were on a ship, a cruise ship, and it was like, I like to explain it as if it was like a mall, a giant mall. It didn't feel too overpopulated to me, which is another thing I was concerned about since you are kind of like all together all the time. And you couldn't feel actually the movement. I think we felt the most movement that last day. Do you remember that day on sea?
Yep.
We were all like, whoa, that
Yeah.
was like the most.
And I was better off in my room at that point. If I was trying to walk around the ship, then I didn't feel well. But if I went back to my room, then I was fine.
Totally. And it didn't make me feel sick. It made Andrew and Jaden feel a little bit sick. But we were intimidated by the thought of a cruise, being on the water like that. And I just remember leaving it thinking, I'm definitely doing it multiple times again. I think we were really lucky, though, because the ship had so much to do on it. So like the kids were able to do a lot and then get off a lot. There was a lot of things to keep us entertained. So we had a blast. First time in Europe. Not going to lie, that airplane ride was pretty intense. And the jet lag was definitely a reality and definitely a real thing.
It was brutal.
My times were all messed up. I feel like I had so much FOMO in the middle of the night. Like all my friends were up hanging out and I was sleeping. Like that was really tough for me. But we had a blast, and I would definitely recommend a cruise. Even if you do get motion sickness, I think that like for my husband who has extreme motion sickness, they were fine.
Well, and the ship we were on is literally the biggest ship in the world at this point.
Wow, yeah, it's huge.
It's called Symphony of the Seas, but there's like a class of ships with Royal Caribbean, and they're called Oasis class ships. So all of those ships are massive. And I swear each one, they just have to add a little size so it can be like the biggest ship in the world.
Yeah. I mean, can we talk about that slide, the Abyss? I mean, that thing was huge.
You guys put a video up about that today because I always do some like social media Insta stalking before like the day before when I'm getting on. And you guys put the video up, and you know what I'm going to tell you? You guys made it look kinder than that slide was to me.
I was thinking, okay, I can either put this slide in the perspective of what my son thought it was going to be or what I thought it was going to be. So I got on there and I had a blast, but Cass was kind of like, I'm not going to do that. It's really dark and there's something that's shouting.
It looks terrifying. Yeah.
And it was like, there's like, they have some sort of a screaming fish or something that happens when you go down it. And you
know what it is? It's the fish that you find at the very bottom of the ocean.
Yes, it's that one.
Nemo.
Yep. Hey, I like Finding Nemo. So it was definitely that fish, and it definitely screams at you as you go down and the lights flash. I like that kind of stuff. I'm kind of like a thrill junkie with roller coasters and stuff. But for someone like Cass, who's a little more cautious, he was kind of like, and Jaden, I had to coax her for sure. But it was fun. I really enjoyed that. I would ride it again.
And definitely like grown-ups go faster than kids, right? So I think your size maybe moderates your experience.
It does. I think it does. So he probably would have sat in there a lot longer and probably had a different experience because he's going a little bit slower.
I got really dizzy.
You did?
I realized just how old I was and like flashing lights, and I like kind of crawled out of the bottom and I was like, I'm going to...
Yeah, you crawled out. You came emerging, just like crawling out of the bottom.
Yeah, but the point is there is so much to do on board. We took the kids ice skating, golfing.
There were shows.
Yeah, shows, a flow rider.
Rock climbing.
Zip line.
All of it. Golfing. Basketball. I mean,
we didn't even fit in all the things you could do. The thing I'm bummed that we missed was laser tag.
Oh, yeah. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, there was actually multiple things I wanted to see. I think there was another show I wanted to see. I mean, I didn't even know there was a casino until I had to run through it. And at the end of running through it, I was like, wow, I smell so much like smoke. But I didn't even know that was on the ship. That was crazy.
And the cool thing about that is if you've got kids, right, and you're not going to be hitting the casino, you literally could never see it.
No.
Like it can be a thing that you just never even run into. Or if you're all about the casino life.
Yeah, there's that option.
Check the kids into Adventure Ocean and,
Adventure
go
Ocean.
and throw your snake
That
eyes.
was hilarious. Me and you like stalking the whole time that they were in Adventure Ocean.
We tried to check our kids into the teen camp.
And then we just sat there looking in the window.
Because we needed to know if they would bond with their new international friends.
Remember, they bailed. And then they got
did.
busted. And we were like,
And their advice on that was it would be good to go for the teen program to make sure that you went at the very first of the week so you could meet everybody and get involved we took them up like the last day or something.
Yes, that would have been good, I think, for them for sure.
So across the board, it was super fun. Our excursions, I mean, we saw the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We saw the Colosseum. I mean, we did some really cool stuff.
Yeah, and one thing maybe I would have done a little differently would be to give myself a couple of days to get used to it. So maybe next time I would have come into Barcelona a couple of days early and allowed ourselves to adjust a little bit, especially with little kids, and then went on a cruise because I feel like the first couple of days we were trying to get our bearings. And by that time, it was like 4 days in.
Yeah, you're so tired.
If we would have maybe flown in like 4 days before the cruise, given ourselves a couple of days to adjust, and then went on the cruise, I think maybe we would have been able to enjoy the first couple of days a little bit better.
Yeah.
Since it was a kind of a quick cruise, a seven night, right?
Uh-huh.
So I feel like maybe for younger kids, that's what I would do next time is give myself a couple of days to get them adjusted and get me adjusted.
And there's definitely more to do in Barcelona. Like I would not be sad to spend a couple more days in Barcelona.
Me neither. And I'm so bummed we missed the pizza thing in Italy. I was like, if one more person tells me how fun that was, I'm going to lose it because I wanted to make the pizza there with my family. And that was the day we missed. So
I was so sad myself. Everybody came back. They're like, do we tell you how good it was?
I was like, can you not say it again? Thank you.
Yeah. One of Royal Caribbean's excursions, you get to Naples and you can go to this private like pizza making excursion. And that was the day we decided to stay on board and do all the things you can do on the ship because everybody else is off the ship. We had a belly full of regret and not a belly full of pizza.
But you loved the gladiator thing. So, I mean, that's all that counted, right?
Well, dude, that gladiator's like pecs and abs. Are you kidding me?
That's so funny.
My husband was like, why are there so many pictures of this gladiator? I'm like, I don't know. Weird.
Yeah, I didn't know. Oh my gosh, Josh must have did that. Not me. I don't know why.
I've done Europe several times, never with kids. And I just brought my teens on this one. My youngest and my husband stayed home, sadly. So I've done the whole like hitchhike around, backpack around, stay in hostels where you probably got fleas, like, and then I've done the luxurious side, like going to the Cannes Film Festival and, all the things. But the cruise made it the lowest stress, easiest on logistics. And if you've got kids, the things that I love is that you pull up to a port. You didn't have to rehaul your luggage or find a new hotel there or check in, do any of that. You just pull up to the port, you walk off the ship, you go and do all the things, and your kids get super worn out during the day because, of course, you're going to go do more sightseeing, kind of cultural stuff, usually. They come back worn out, but when you get back on board, you have more food than you know what to do with, a billion activities. They can still hop in a hot tub or jump in the pool and get more soft serve ice cream.
The cruise was awesome. It made the experience amazing.
Yeah. You didn't have to worry about a whole lot of logistics or hauling a whole bunch of stuff around. I loved it.
Yeah. And then I felt like you didn't like waste a ton of time either. Like sometimes if you're a newbie and you don't have your thing structured to the T, you might just end up spending your day trying to figure out what you're doing. And then at that point, it's like, the day's all gone. So I feel like I really liked the option of here's the excursion we're going to do. You're going to see this, or you can stay on the ship, whatever you want to do. So I like someone planning it out for me. I feel really confident in that versus my abilities sometimes.
For sure. Now, your video, I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes because I feel like you highlighted a lot of the activities that were available on the ship.
Yeah, and we have another one going live today too. So we had 2 that we were doing with Royal Caribbean, and that was posted. One was posted yesterday and one's going live today. So those will be a lot of insight on the ship if people want more information on it.
Okay, I'll put a bunch of links in the show notes for
Thank
that.
you. You're the best.
Okay, so give us the 411 on the Slyfox family. Like, what do you guys do? What is Slyfox family all about?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So a lot of people think Slyfox is our last name, which is really funny because even I think when I met Addie, she was like, oh, Slyfox isn't your last name? And I was like, no, that's not our last name.
And I kind of had bought into that too. And then I was like, what a fool I am. Who really has the last name Slyfox?
I'm like, I really wish that, when I married my husband, he was like, hey, babe, my name is Andrew Slyfox. And I'd have been like, oh my gosh, I'm in. Let's go. But it was not. Growing up, my maiden name was Parker and Andrew's last name was Brown. So, kind of a little bit far from Slyfox, but it works. Slyfox actually came around when I started a clothing line. It started off with little bandana bibs for kids because I did not like any of the bibs for babies that they had out there. So we created some bandana bibs and I kind of thought they looked like little sly cowboys because they almost mimic like a cowboy handkerchief. Yeah. So I was like, that's like a little sly cowboy. And at the time, foxes, I loved them because the woodland creature hype was like a real thing when my son was a baby.
I know. And the woodland creature hype, just slight segue, has turned into, I think, like a llama hype.
It has kind of turned into a llama and sloth hype. I'm like, what happened to the woodland creatures? Where's my foxes at?
They're so yesterday, Hannah.
They are so yesterday, but now there's not much I can do. So that's where the name came from. And that kind of evolved around 2014. Is when Slyfox came into play. And before that, we had other like media companies. One was like Art Pilot. Another one was Ezekiel Design. So Slyfox honestly has only been around for probably like 4 or 5 years. We just started turning it more into kind of trying to become a brand more than just like a clothing line. So when people think of Slyfox, they think of, possibly our clothing line or possibly our YouTube channel or just the family in general. Kind of building that brand, branching over to Instagram, branching over into all of our stuff so that we can kind of have multiple avenues in the Slyfox brand. That way, if one doesn't work, you know what I mean? Kind of like what we talked about with putting our eggs in different baskets. But
yeah, which we had a whole like strategy session, not strategy session, but on board. We were breaking down the recent social media trends and algorithms like little geniuses.
I mean, your boss, like I remember walking away and even talking to my friends and being like, this lady is like genius, like someone I would definitely look up to in like the business mompreneur type of.
Oh my gosh. So typically we'll do out of each episode of the podcast, we'll do some little like quotes that we put up, like graphic quotes. I'm going to make everything you just said a graphic quote.
Okay.
And slap that up all over the internet.
Perfect. Perfect. With your face on it, and we'll just make it a meme. How about that?
We'll just make it a meme, and we're really going to build my street cred.
Nice. There we go. You're building your own brand right there.
Dude, that's so nice. Thank you, though. But I mean, you guys are honest geniuses, and you're doing stuff in a world that we haven't touched at all, which is YouTube, which has gone nuts, right? I mean, everywhere you go, people recognize your face. Like even in Europe, you had strangers coming up to you.
Yeah, it's cool. It's different. Definitely when we first started, YouTube was something we didn't know. Our best friends were in it and they were like, you guys should do it. And we started and it definitely took off and it's changed a lot and it's evolved and it's definitely a lot different now. But the cool thing is, like I said, with trying to build a brand, we're trying to build our kids like Instagram, which is kind of all debatable for all moms who are like, wait a minute, your kids have an Instagram? And I'm like, they don't touch it. I touch it. This is for future for them. So we kind of try to build all kinds of avenues with it. YouTube was the platform for us to start on, but I feel like that kind of leads to so many other things. And it definitely is a different beast and it's competitive out there. And it honestly, sadly enough, the family genre of YouTube is probably one of the most cutthroat out there, but we've enjoyed it. We feel incredibly blessed that we get to do something like this. It's kind of like a dream, like how often do you tell your kids we're going to Europe because someone's bringing us out there to review their ship and you're going to have a blast, you know what I mean? So we've been incredibly thankful. From the beginning of our marriage, my husband and I chose the hard route and said we always want to work together. So we've always owned companies, did music together. We ran the clothing line together, did graphic and web design.
You're listening to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachael Hersher. We'll be back right after this.
You've heard us talk about our crazy magical trip with Royal Caribbean to explore the Mediterranean. This week, you'll find my wrap-up of the trip on todaysmama.com along with the lowdown on the biggest ship in the world and all the things there are to do for kids and teenagers on board Royal Caribbean's Symphony of the Seas. Of course, I'm also including links to the Slyfox family videos because They are a blast. You can find the link in the show notes, which you can find at todaysmama.com/podcast. Meet you in the Mediterranean? Yes, please.
And now back to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachael Hersher.
Let's talk about how you met and how you got married, because if I were to describe it, I would say maybe swift.
Swift and shocking?
Yes.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Swift and shocking?
Break that down for us, because I'd also include that it makes me feel like you guys are kind of like the social media internet OGs in every piece of your life.
MySpace OGs. Okay. So I'm just going to set the stage for you guys a little bit. Let's just think small town Michigan boy, California girl, super sheltered. This was me. I grew up where my dad was very strict. When I only did have one boyfriend growing up, and it was kind of one of those situations where it was like, if you're going to hold hands, you can hold hands in front of us. And I was kind of one of those girls that listened. The fear of my father was real. So he was kind of one of those guys that would be like, okay, so, no holding hands, no, I would go to movies and he would be like, no sitting by boys, and I would just think he would be in there. So it's not
just
like I would
in
even
the
see
dark.
it. Yeah, I'm like, I can see him. He's looking at me. He's not even there, you know? So that was me. Andrew grew up a little bit more, let's say less sheltered. So we met on a thing, I don't know if you guys know this, and I'm going to date and age myself so bad right now, called MySpace. So MySpace connected me and my husband. He saw me on a music page with a Taylor guitar, which is an acoustic guitar. He had the same one. So he reached out to me and said, I like your guitar. And the conversation started, and we kind of talked on and off for maybe a month, not talking, where it's you're kind of dating to see whatever. It was literally random talk. And then one day we exchanged instant messenger names. I mean, that's next level right there. So we started talking on there just a little bit, very randomly. It escalated very quickly. I would say it escalated probably within a week to a week and a half. And then he came out probably the next week. The first time we met, he brought his mom. He came out for 5 days. And he asked my dad if we could be boyfriend and girlfriend. And he also asked him if he could marry me, which is crazy.
Now, this is 5 days.
This is 5 days in from ever meeting. My dad loved him. I kept my parents involved pretty much the whole time, as we were even just kind of chatting. So,
and let me ask you really quick too, how old were you when this was happening?
I was 19.
Okay.
So I feel like back then, I'm 33 now. So I feel like back then it was trendy to get married young. I don't know why. I feel like now is changing.
It's always been trendy in Utah.
Right? Oh, in Utah. Yeah, we live there.
We're on top of those trends.
16 years old and getting married. I'm just kidding. But for me, I felt like everybody was that's kind of what you did. I was ready though. I felt like I wanted to get married. I don't know where I was at in my headspace at that time. So my dad was like, yeah, all in. I flew out to Michigan with my mom, I think 2 weeks later, to sing at his dad's church for their Easter special. And that night that I flew in, he actually took me to his dad's church that him and his dad had built together. And he proposed to me. He wrote me a song, which I now have tattooed on my chest, just a little piece of the verse. Gave me the ring, asked me to marry him. And I actually got my first kiss that night, which was really crazy. I didn't know how to kiss. So basically I kissed my teeth because I was just smiling so big. It was a lot of I got engaged and I had my first kiss. And we drove down to Nashville the next day because his family was moving down to Nashville to start a church. And my family was actually going to be moving from California to start the church with him, which is a crazy thing if you think that in-laws can get along like that with barely knowing each other, So we went down to Nashville and we eloped 2 days into our Nashville trip. We went and found a judge and got married.
And when you say eloped, neither of your parents knew about this, did they?
They didn't. And the only reason that it's really funny, we told his dad probably 2 days later, we were sneaking around a little bit because we were married and whatever else. And we told his dad 2 days later, and his dad was just kind of nervous because we hadn't told my family. My parents were kind of strict, and there was a lot of kind of moving parts in that, just to put this softly. And he was kind of like, maybe you guys shouldn't, tell anyone. I'm trying to be careful with my words. You maybe shouldn't tell anyone and just go forth with the marriage like a couple months later, actually have a wedding, and just like, so it scared the crud out of me and my husband talking to his dad. So I actually went back to California and he went back to Michigan. He flew out like a couple weeks later. I was like, we're married. This is so dumb. Why do we have to be apart? You know, kind of all those emotions. So he moved to California to help us move to Tennessee. I'm sorry, all this is so confusing. The timeline is. Here's a really funny part of the story. We were acting like we were married secretly. Nobody knew, you know, but we were young and married and in love. So we were, you know, I would like sneak in a kiss to be nicely here and there. You know what I mean? And my mom is like kind of like queen of, she likes to call it investigating and I like to call it snooping. So my mom is really good at that. So she called me up and she's like, I found a marriage certificate and another married item under your bed. And I was like, oh my gosh. She was like, get home. So we had this full on conversation. It was like really hard for her, which I feel really sad, you know, but she jumped right on board, which is amazing. That's a good thing about my mom. She jumped right on board and she threw me a shower, which was so cool for me. And from that time on, it just, we didn't look back on the situation. I feel like would I do it differently? Maybe. I've never had a wedding and I would love to. I actually want to do like a renewal of vows.
Yeah, because so you've been married 13 years later now.
13 years. That was in 2004 that happened. And I was 19 and he was 20, just 21. So we were just babies. Actually got pregnant and had Jaden at 22. Everything moves very quickly with us. So it was a whirlwind. And I like to say that the first year of marriage was our dating years. You just can't separate, you know? So we could never break up. We just had to learn about each other, which was very unconventional.
So what was the hardest thing about that?
The hardest thing about that was the adjustment. I mean, at that age, you just don't know. Like, you know, you can know if you love the person or whatever else, but you don't know what that looks like. If I can stand here now and tell you the kind of love that now requires from marriage, it's not the emotion. It's like actually a sacrifice. It's like a dying to yourself on a daily basis. So it's like not this emotional unicorns and butterflies and whatever else that you think it's going to be. It's hard work. And so for us, the hardest part for me was that first year of being in a new state away from my friends. We lived with his family in his house. I feel like I didn't really know them very well, you know? So I was in their house with his mom and his dad living in a room. We couldn't make ends meet. So we lived with his parents and we were just young. So that was really hard because I felt like it was a lot of adjusting for me. I'm a very naturally social person. I like to be around my friends. I like to be around comfort. And I felt very thrown into a different element.
Well, you were learning all of the things, like in all caps, all the things. He was your first kiss.
Yeah, all the things. If we want to say all the things, I was not educated in a lot of the things. So, and we didn't live with my parents, you know, so I'm like feeling like I'm living with strangers. We're trying to learn all the things. And I feel like his mom was at the door half the time. So it was kind of like one of those things that I look back and I just feel like I can laugh. Like it's comical. Like I can't believe we survived that first 2 years. And then you throw a baby in the mix of that.
Well, and you actually gave yourself a few years. Like, so my sister-in-law, they dated for 3 weeks, got engaged, married 3 months later, and then had a surprise pregnancy a couple months after that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we gave ourselves a good year.
Yeah. In their first year, they had done all those things.
All the things.
You know, one quote that popped into my head when you were talking about the different kinds of love, but it's from C.S. Lewis, and he's talking about what real love is and how real love is actually a quieter love. It's very different than all the things we imagine at the beginning, because the beginning is like fireworks and, you know, all of this emotion and energy. And he says, what would become of us? That energy is unsustainable. What would happen to our eat, our sleep, our work, our lives, right? Like we couldn't manage that pace.
No, you can't. And it's such a unrealistic expectation too. I feel like where it's like you almost set yourself up for failure if you think it's always going to be like this incredible energy that you feel like you can't breathe and think, because that's how it was initially for me. I mean, I just remember thinking this is great. But then you throw in real life, you know, and that honeymoon phase dies down and you actually have to do life together. And that's where the real test comes in, I feel like, where it's like you just keep pushing, you know, like even in like my little thing I was filling out, my quote, like just keep swimming. I always just, that's my thing. Like, just keep going, like figure out what you need to do, adapt, adjust, like, and then just keep going. So that's for me. I'm always like, with our marriage, new seasons, new trials come. I mean, now I have almost a teenager. I feel like that's going to be its own season in and of itself. So I just keep moving forward.
Yeah, there's so many seasons to this whole journey and to parenthood, right? Like that, it just is a consistently changing
It's
game.
like a gumbo. It's just a smorgasbord of different experiences. I feel like that's why when you think about it, or when I'm like, I just need to like talk to like an older woman, it's not for anything else other than I know that she's so seasoned. Like I've already been through 13 years of different seasons and different situations. It's just like life just seasons you, and it's hard, and there's lots of things. You choose what to learn from it and how to move forward. You can either let it cripple you when things are hard, or you can allow it to change you and grow you and move through seasons. And it's kind of something that I've had to learn, especially with all the different kinds of seasons that we've been through. And I feel like we always kind of do things the hard and unconventional way, me and my husband. So we learn through all of those very differently.
And I love what you said about sometimes I just need to talk to somebody a little older than me or a few steps ahead of me, because for me, and I've said this on the show before, the best thing anybody ever said to me was, I love teenagers, because I was so scared of teenagers. And there's this older couple who said that was our favorite stage of life. They are the funnest, most interesting, unique people. That is my favorite stage. So I started to look forward to it. And so far, that's been my experience, right?
Okay, yeah. See, that's good to hear. I'm glad, because I have an 11-year-old. So
yeah. And as I lament, we've also talked about pre-mourning on the show. Like, I'm a pre-mourner. I am already pre-mourning the fact that like my kids are going to graduate high school, and
that's tough.
Juicy's going to move out of the house.
Juicy, don't leave us.
Yeah. And he's going to be up in the mountains with Caspian, and maybe we'll be able to visit or not.
And I'm going to lose my 10-year-old because Juicy's going to be out of the house. I know. I feel like that too. I feel like you blink and it's like, if you're not careful, you'll miss everything. So like, I already feel like I've just blinked and she's 11 and I'm like, where are we at? Like, what's happening? And you just, life will cloud you, and life will make you forget, you know, what you need to remember. So I just, like, right now, especially, I'm like, okay, I just need to enjoy day by day with my kids and like figure out what they need and what their love language is and like how they need to be feeling filled. And
now, probably more than any other time in my life or as a parent, I am so focused on that, on being present, because I really am staring down a rapidly declining calendar, right?
Yeah. And that's hard. That's really hard to be present in this time and age. And we're social, and phones and everything is such a distraction. Like, I literally have to peel Jaden off of Fortnite. You know, I'm like, hello, I need some of your time. You know what I mean? And so like, it's like kind of one of those things where it's so easy to not be present in this day and age. Everything is so where you can just check out, you know? Definitely.
And then moments and milestones just start hitting you rapid fire. So like, my son just went to homecoming, and I just had to be like, okay, this is first homecoming. And I got to be like fully present on this, because it's one day, it's here and it's gone. And what's next? And you know, it's just moving through the school year. And I realized high school seemed so long to us when we were there. And right now it looks so short to me.
Yeah. And you know what the trickiest thing for me right now is? I'm already bracing myself. How do I balance this friend and mom situation with my daughter? I don't necessarily care about being her friend, but I want her to talk to me, you know, like she's a little more private than me. I'm more like, hi, I'm going to the bathroom. You guys want to have a conversation with the door open, you know? And she's more like, shut the door. Nobody look at me. I'm already bracing myself. Like, how do I make sure that my daughter talks to me about things that are important and what she's going through? And I don't make her feel judged or any less than, but I'm able to like actually be there for her as a mom, you know, like that's what I'm most panicking about as she becomes a woman and as she gets older is, what does this look like? You know, I feel like I got a couple years on my boy right now. He's only 6, but Jaden, I'm just like, that's my biggest thing. Even I feel like the scariest thing for me is failure, but I know that looks different in everybody's eyes. And it's you can get inside your own head being a parent. And then it honestly could cripple you.
Yeah. And teenage girls are tricky. I'm still trying to figure this thing out. And all kids are different. So my son who's 16, he'll talk to me about anything. My daughter is more private. Some people will kind of generalize boys and be like, no, you can't like look boys in the eye and come at them like straightforward. You got to just talk to them side by side, and acting like they're this like caged beast to speak around. That's not the case. I would say my daughter is more like that. So I find the advice that people have given about boys in that way, like I'm better if we start having a tricky conversation and she's sitting in the passenger seat or in the back seat. You know, I still just kind of work the things in that I need to and plant the seeds and try to, you know.
You have to be very strategic.
Yes.
Like that's one thing with my daughter is what I'm learning is if I had to sum it up, I'm thinking strategy. With Caspian, I could just like be like, hi, buddy. I feel like actually Juicy and Cass have similar demeanors to me.
Yes.
Whereas like, I feel like he's going to be my mama's boy. He's going to want to talk to me probably too much. And I'm going to be like, okay, no more. Thank you. Like, you know, I can't hear that. You can't tell me that. Like, that's hard for me. Go talk to your dad. But like, Jaden, on the other hand, is the one I'm scared of failing. I feel like, and it's like, cause I'm her mom, I'm like, and I had her so young. I already have a lot of regrets from when I was young. And I feel like I missed a lot because we were trying to do whatever we were trying to do, trying to be rock stars, however you want to say it. So I already feel this, I can't allow failure to be the stamp on our relationship. Right now, I'm trying to rebrand our relationship to be like, okay, that day sucked. Now let's move on to the next and figure out how I can better do this with her. What does she need? Her needs are so different from Caspian's. I can just already tell. So it's just kind of one of those things, like you said, like it's all strategy. Like I'm sitting there and we're talking and I'm like, so like, what do you think about this? And like trying to like talk and like not come off like, okay, you better tell me that, you know what I mean? It's just so tricky because I am her mom still. So I have to kind of be like laying down the hammer sometimes for sure when she's mouthing off. But like,
it's tricky. It's so tricky.
It's tricky.
And I think we project our own failures, both as a mother, but also as our own past teenage girl or all of that. I think somehow in our heads, we project that all onto our daughters and how their lives are going to turn out.
It's true. It's very true.
Yeah, we need like a whole episode on that with somebody who actually knows the answer.
I'm like, can we do like a therapy session? Where's the therapist in the house? Can I just?
But you want to know what makes me feel better is that the simple fact that other moms and daughters that they feel the same way.
Thank you. That is right.
You know, and sometimes that's just enough to be like, okay, this must be fairly normal because so many people feel this way. Yes, can we do better? Can we figure out better strategies? Absolutely.
For sure. And that's where you bounce it.
But like, we're not alone.
Yeah. And you know what? That's why I'm like sitting here thinking to myself, can we all just like liar this stuff? Like, you know, the movie where we just all talk to each other. Like, I wish it wasn't this, like, sometimes I feel off of each other. There's this secret hidden thing of we all have to feel like we have it together and have the answers. I'm like, I just want to talk to someone that's going through similar stuff and maybe they have a different perspective and they can help me. Not because I would feel any less than or anything else, but it would just be kind of like, this is life. We're all learning. We're all growing. We're all figuring this out. And because you're different than me, you might have a different perspective.
And you can just feel a little more normal.
You can. And you could feel like maybe it's not a failure. You're just learning because raising kids, being married, doing life is all incredibly tricky things. And it's like, if you kind of get in your head, because I notice when I get into my head, I just, like I said, I blink and a month has gone by and I'm like, wait a minute, I can't allow myself to do this. I just have to be in it and just figure it out and just hope it works out okay. You know what I mean? I think we turn out okay. I think I turned out a little bit okay. My parents did the best they could. So
ultimately, it will be okay. And ultimately, it was so much easier to talk about parenting being hard when you had a kid that was up all night or you just got puked on or there was a blowout or whatever it was. It's a whole lot easier to talk about those little people problems than what's happening with teenagers, and for a lot of reasons.
Because this is emotional, you know, and this is the real stuff. I'm like, am I going to screw you up as an adult by what I'm saying here? Like, it's one thing if you actually put the diaper on wrong. Totally. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, whatever, they'll be okay. But if I give my child advice and she remembers that, because I remember things from my parents when I was like a teenager, I'm like, is she gonna like not like me? Like, it's just like you're all in your head. It's tough.
Am I going to be the center of her therapy session?
Oh yeah. Is it going to be like, my mom said this to me and now I am not okay. I'm just going to lose it. You know what I mean? So I'm like all up in, I'm like, what do you want me to say here?
You're listening to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachael Hersher. We'll be back right after this.
Are you subscribed yet? Oh, you're not? Weird. It's cool. We can get through this. Just hit subscribe on whatever app or platform you are listening to this compelling episode of the Today's Mama podcast on. But wait, you say, there's even more? If you go to todaysmama.com/podcast, you'll see a link that says subscribe. You can subscribe via email right there. You'll get a weekly update when a new show goes live, and you'll automatically be entered to win any contest or giveaway that we ever host until the end of time. Amen. It might be a book or some little gadget, or it might be thousands of dollars or a full backyard movie night setup, if I'm to mention just a couple of our most recent giveaways. Basically, it's too good to be true. So get over there, hit up todaysmama.com/podcast, and let's make this thing official.
And now back to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachael Hersher.
Let's talk about the fact that you guys are parenting under a fairly public lens.
Yes. Oh, that's fun.
You get to edit as well, but how do you do that? Like, what's public and what's private? Because this gets more sensitive the older your kids get. So how are you guys handling that?
It totally does. So in the beginning, when we started, we've been doing YouTube for, I think, close to 3 years. Obviously, it was a lot different. Jaden wasn't 11. She was, I think, 8, turning 9, which is a little bit younger, and Cass was 5. Plus, you're learning. What I like to say, and kind of like how I think of life, is constant growth and constant learning. So how we did YouTube in the beginning is a lot different than how we do it now. Whereas before, it was very vlog driven. We showed a lot of stuff because that's what we thought you did when you showed vlogs. You showed the reality of life. You showed the hard times, the crying, whatever else, the situations at the doctors, the good and the bad and the ugly. And that's kind of what we knew in the beginning. That's what everybody was doing. It has evolved a lot. And now we have kind of took a stance that anything that our kids are uncomfortable with, we don't do. So if I'm talking to Jaden and I'm like, hey, let's film this, this is kind of a milestone. And she's like, I'm not comfortable with that. We don't do it. So we've learned to let them be the voice of themselves. Obviously it's different if we're doing a slime challenge and they're just being kids and they're like, oh, we don't feel like doing this right now. We're like, let's just have fun and do it together. We might coax them a little bit more. There's not like, at that point, it's not kind of an emotional thing. It's more of they're just being kids and they want to go play video games. So for us, it's like, we have learned to follow their lead if it's something that's sensitive or something that we would feel uncomfortable with. If I might feel embarrassed by a situation being on the internet, then I'm not going to put my kids through that either. We've kind of evolved into being less about the everyday details of the life and more about the summary, because honestly, we only show about 10 minutes, of the day. So if you kind of think about that, we'll put in the imperfections. We might show a little bit of Andrew and I snipping, or me being like, whatever. Or if Jaden and Caspian start snipping and the camera is on and they're fine with however the situation is handled, and I am able to correct the situation just to show that we're a normal family. So there's not this facade of this family that never fights or whatever else, then we might show a little bit of that. But we've learned to kind of just adapt to the situation. Plus, anything that you put out there, I'm welcoming opinions. In the public eye, if I put something out and I'm already a little bit sensitive about the situation, I just have to know that there's going to be comments and there's going to be people's opinions and anything else. So if I don't want to hear an opinion, or if I'm not okay with there being comments, then maybe don't put it out there, because honestly, even though people can be mean and anything else, I'm still putting myself out in the public, if that makes sense.
And that's a pretty good screener question, really. If I'm not okay with other people's opinions, then this is private. I'm going to keep it to myself.
Right. Because then if I'm already insecure, if I'm already feeling whatever about the situation, maybe like a schooling thing, if I'm feeling insecure about it, or I feel sensitive to people's opinions, then why would I blast it on the internet and then welcome even more? So it kind of has to be for your family, what you're comfortable with, and you learn as you grow. Like I said, so different than how we first started, but just evolving every day as my kids go through different seasons and we go through different seasons. And I figure out I didn't like hearing of people's opinions on that. It hurt me. It made me feel uncomfortable. So maybe I'm not going to talk about that again. Or, maybe it's an opportunity that it's something that people are going to comment on, but I still want to be able to use my platform to communicate how I feel. So it's just all in balance, and there's no formula. It's honestly just per family and what you're comfortable with. And our best friends do the same thing and they might do it completely different. It's just kind of like what's best for you guys. But honestly, when you do things in the public, it's just, you kind of know that stuff comes with it, which is even why for my kids, I don't let them. Jaden has been asking me about her Instagram, and I'm like, no, not yet. Maybe when you're 20.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because Jaden has almost 200,000 Instagram followers.
Yes.
Caspian has over 220,000.
Yes.
They even understand what that means.
They don't. The only thing they understand is that he has more than her. That's what she's really trying to do. She's like, I don't get it. I'm like, babe, I'm sorry. Like, he's been put in a couple of different positions that, like, you know, he's been able to grow a little bit more. But honestly, what I'm hoping for that is maybe in the future, I don't know where everything's going to land or be, but when she's 17 or 18 years old, she's maybe able to make a little money from it instead of having to go work a different job if she wants it. If she doesn't have to. You know, no pressure from me, but at least I'm setting it up there just in case.
Now, they don't access their Instagram accounts though, right?
No, it's only on my phone and on Andrew's phone. I have all of our socials on my phone, and then Andrew has all of ours on his. So nothing's private in our home, really. Everything's open to each other.
At what age do you think you'd open Instagram up to your kids to engage themselves on?
Honestly, I've been thinking about it. Depending on the situation, depending on where I feel Jaden's at, I would say 16, 17 and older, I would think, for them, just because there is still comments and there is still things, unless something changes, which I've learned that I can say 16 and 17, but something might completely change. I could say I'm never moving back to wherever. And, you know, I've just learned that things change. But for now, what's in my mind is 16 and older for Jaden, especially just because people are kind of mean and people comment on identities and the way you look and your flaws. And I don't want her. She's already going to have to deal with that, being a girl and having friends and whatever else. Like, I don't know if I necessarily want to open it up that publicly unless we have a conversation and I feel she's ready for it. Like, I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of a public scrutiny for her personally before then.
And I agree with you on this, whether you have 200,000 followers or 200. Girls, especially, Instagram is really tough. And I always thought, okay, you know what? We'll go by the user rules, which is you have to be 13. And so my kids got Instagram accounts when they were 13. I quickly realized I didn't like that. I didn't like the amount of time that is spent there. And I also didn't like those kind of just subliminal messages that they pick up by being on there. So all their accounts are on my phone as well. And these are just like, they're regular. My kids are not social media. You know, they don't have a big social media following. It's just, you know, they're junior high and high school friends.
I think a lot of parents don't understand the amount of impact. Like, even just going on the search page or the homepage, I feel like, even for me, when I see a family on Instagram that looks like they have it all together, I can't help but feel less than. I don't know why. There's some sort of a value thing that is something that even now in my older age, I am having to work through. I don't know if it's part of my personality or however it works through. So I know that for my daughter, she might see something and feel, I don't want her to feel less than. Now, I know this is life, and I know that she can walk by a magazine stand and see it. You know what I mean? And whatever else, because of how accessible social media is and because of how accessible phones are in our hands at all times. I mean, for me, I have a hard time putting my phone down. That's something I have to consciously say, sit with your kids, you know, make the effort, because I am such a busybody person. So why would I want to give my daughter that access so easily to sit there and start building up these things? Like, I would rather her start her young life feeling confident in who she is and then have to work through things as she gets a little older. So for me, it's like already hard enough. I think if she struggles like a little bit with what I struggle with, feeling like, wow, their marriage is perfect. Wow, their kids are perfect. But this is just pictures. And I know how it works. I know how social media works. We take a picture in a kitchen, but we don't see the side where there's all the crap and clutter. You know, it's just what's in the focal point and it's just what the eye can see. But it's so deceiving because the rest of life is still so messy. I'm not ready for her to feel that yet before that age. I don't think. That's just a little bit.
And you're somebody who creates content all the time, and you fully understand the ability of people to crop a shot, right?
Oh yeah.
And to pull something in and to not see what you don't want, or to put a filter on, and you still feel these ways. And it's because you're human, and we're all human. And I have yet to meet somebody who's like, soul is impenetrable to this stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Talking to a 55-year-old dad at a soccer game the other day, who he's just like, you know what? My life is more than I ever expected it would be. But sometimes if I pick up Instagram and I start scrolling through my wife's account and I'm like, oh my gosh, well, like, they're in Europe and they're on top of a mountain and they're out water skiing and I'm like mowing my lawn. Like, I suck.
It's really hard not to compare. The comparison trap is a real thing. And so when we give ourselves tools to feed into it, especially at a young age like that, like I said, it's hard for me at 30s. And it's hard, obviously, like you just said, for an older man. Can I imagine how hard it's going to be for our kids growing up in this, you know? So I'm just hoping instead of sheltering and instead of bubbling, I can give her the proper tools. I just feel like some things I feel more strong on, like in Instagram, I know how this makes me feel and I know how time consuming it can be. The social, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And, you know, for me, it's a little bit different. It is part of my job, but for her, it's not yet. So just go color, you know, you're 11. Go color and read a book. It's fine.
Go outside.
You know, go make a fort, whatever you need to do. I don't know. Like, just, you don't need that yet. You don't need that in your head. You're already going to deal with that when you're older. So right now, just enjoy the simple things in life.
Talk to me about YouTube, because YouTube has maybe some different dangers or habits or risks associated when kids are just kind of left to their own devices on YouTube. What is your best advice to parents who hand those unboxing videos or those chocolate egg surprise videos to their kids and just kind of let it run on a roll?
Totally. Okay. So one thing that I have very much learned is, like, let's just say we're in the store and the kids, we'll have like little kids come up to us, maybe 6, sometimes 5, 6. I love your stuff. And the mom will come up to me and be like, my daughter's freaking out. I don't know who you are. And I'm looking at the mom and I'm like, here's my advice. We're a good family channel. We're clean. Know who your kids are watching. Know who they're watching, what's coming on after. I was like, we're clean, but I can't control or handle who comes on 3 shows in. I was like, so the best thing for you to do is to know, especially when your kids are young. Like if your 5-year-old, 6-year-old is freaking out and knowing, it's awesome when I love it when the parents like, we watch you guys together. Like that's the best for me. YouTube is a scary platform sometimes. Even though they say that they are filtering and doing good things, at the same time, there are things that come on and there's inappropriate content. And even on like kids tube, things will come through. There has been like that really scary stuff that was happening with like the dress up Spider-Mans and Elsa, and you just don't know. Like you don't know what's going to come on. So for me and for the kids, they are on kids tube, but I'm pretty vocal with them. What are you watching? Who are you watching? What are they saying? Oh, this is a prize and mole video. About what? Like ask the questions. Sit with your kids for 10, 15 minutes, put on your parental supervision blocks, whatever you need to do. I took off like a lot of things for Caspian and for Jaden. They don't have regular YouTube, even though we are YouTubers, and they can watch kind of like a handful of stuff. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Things slip through the cracks and then I'm kicking myself in the butt and I'm like, okay, need to crack down even more on that life lesson, you know, like same thing with video games and honestly, technology in general. It's like really hard. It's easy to get lazy. I have to say, to be like, okay, well, my kids will be fine, like whatever. But I think don't ever think for a second that they're not going to stumble onto something. Always be kind of mindful of what's going on with the kids.
Definitely. There's not a set it and forget it solution to this. This is like a vigilance thing for parents.
And it's ongoing. Yeah. So, you know, I'm constantly, who's that, Cass? Who's that, Jaden? What are you watching? Show me here. Show me like, and it can be exhausting. So maybe that's when you need to limit screen time. And maybe that's where you need to say, you guys can have iPads for 30 minutes with me right here. Or I don't know, whatever the family best solution is. I'm still learning and we're still figuring out because my kids have a tendency to be screenaholics. So I have to sit there and I have to be like, get off. Jaden went to the school of Fortnite this summer. That's what she did. That's what it wasn't summer school. It wasn't camp. She literally did school of Fortnite. And I'm like, Jaden, you know, a lot of it falls on me for sure. But I'm like, Jaden, next time we're going to like get you into something different because I feel like all you did was play Fortnite.
Like every other child in America.
Fortnite is just raking it in right now because...
And outside of America, my sister is married to a guy who's German and his family came over, his brother, and they have a son who's 11 or 12. And the kids were, you know, kind of having a hard time warming up to each other, figuring out how to communicate and all that stuff. As soon as Fortnite came up, like everybody
It's a universal language. Like,
yeah.
My kids are fluent in English in Fortnite. That's what I like to say because it's just like a universal speaking tool and it's very funny. And it reaches all ages from little kids to grown men. So you know, It's kind of one of those things.
Back to YouTube for just a second. Here's the stuff we do at our house. I love what you say about knowing what they're watching, sitting down with them, setting those limits. One thing I've done is I've taken YouTube off my older kids' devices. Like YouTube's just not available. It's a blocked URL, which you can do in parental settings.
Yeah.
And then I make sure that YouTube is what happens in a really visible place in our home. So if they're going to access YouTube and they want to see something, they can log on to the desktop computer that's way out in the open. And that's, where we'll share a YouTube video that they want to watch. And that way it's on a big screen that I can glance over and see whatever's happening.
Totally.
But I still don't think that's everything, right? Like stuff will slip through the cracks. And that's why
unfortunately, it's like kind of like the risk you take. It's such a hard fine line of that balance of bubbling and knowing and teaching, like how happy would my heart be if I taught my child, like, this is why it's not okay. And she actually made the decision herself to click off of something. You know what I mean? I obviously that's unrealistic. They're kids. But I'm hoping that even if she does that for a sliver of the time, because I can't always be there, and as she gets older, I don't know what her and her friends are going to do when they're at the store and they start flipping through a magazine, or what shows they're going to watch when they're not, I can't always be over her shoulder. So as many rules as I'm going to put at home, I'm still going to hopefully try to teach her, why I'm putting this here. It's not just because I'm trying to have rules on her. Like, I'm not just trying to control her life. I'm literally doing this because I care about her and because I know the dangers that come with this stuff. So here's the life lesson. This is why I don't want you to watch this, because this is how it will affect you later. And this is what will happen. You know what I mean? So it's more than just for me putting rules. It's more of like, I want her to know why. And
to have a shared goal in what they want out of it, right? It's habits. I did a little screen time series earlier on the podcast, and one episode was just all about that word you said, why. It's why are we doing this? So in terms of the rules, why do we have these rules? Why am I picking up my phone right now? Why am I on this game? Why am I logging into this place? So they have that self-awareness to actually understand why they're taking the actions they're taking.
Question themselves. Like, I want her to question herself. I want her to question, like you said, motives and situations, and how is this going to benefit me? And is this going to do what? Is this going to set me on a road to desensitize myself? Like, if I can hopefully instill in them, not just no, because I said no. I don't think that's enough of an answer anymore for my 11-year-old. Maybe my little 6-year-old, I can say, because I said no, and he's still got the fear of mommy, where it's like, okay, but my 11-year-old, I want her to have the tools now as she gets older to know how to decipher, to know how to sift through, to be like, I don't want this because that's not the path I want for my life. That's not where I'm setting myself. I'm going to set myself here. And so I'm not going to do that. And this is why, because this can set me up here, So for me, it's just all teaching and learning as to why, why we say no, or why I say, I'm sorry, you can't do this, not just because I'm trying to be an annoying mom. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. I want her to have a fun and good life. There's things that you don't understand when you're young. And if I can try to explain, hopefully when she's older, she remembers.
You guys share some pretty positive and uplifting content. You are a family-friendly channel. You'll often talk about God and your beliefs on social media and in your videos.
Yes.
So I think you both you and Andrew grew up in pretty religious families. I mean, you talked about how they've started churches together, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So what role does that play in your life and online?
So for me, that is pretty much an underlying basis for everything for me. I don't love the stuff that comes along with being out in the public eye. I don't love the scrutiny that comes with it, or there's a difference for me, so I can walk a little carefully between loving and being thankful. Like, I don't love all that stuff that comes with it. I am super thankful for everyone that watches us and for people that love our channel and come up and want to talk to us. Like, I'm thankful for all of those people. But, you don't realize what comes with that when it happens. So we're a Christian non-denominational family. That's always the basis for us. Like, I don't expect us to have a platform just for fame and money. Like, I would rather be behind the scenes and get money and get rich other ways, like figure out other ways. So for us, this platform is something that I want to do something more with. This is the phase that I'm in. I feel like I've been in this phase for a couple of months. I've talked to a couple of organizations, whatever else. It's the underlying basis of having the voice, having the responsibility, and figuring out what I can do with it, how I can make a difference. You know, we have people that are subscribed to our channel and watch us, and I feel like we could make a difference in our family. I feel like we could use our platform, and I could take my kids on a mission trip and show them this is not what life is all about. It's not just about people sending you toys. Like, this is not what our platform is for. It's a fun bonus. I'm glad you guys get to get toys, and that's fun for you to go to premieres. And like Jaden and Caspian just interviewed Channing Tatum and James Corden. Like, there was just them interviewing some of the biggest stars in Hollywood. That's not like clicked in them because that's what they know, you know? So for me, it's like this platform of teaching my kids, this is something that we are very blessed by, but let's do more. How can we help? What do you want to do, Jaden? Do you want to start an organization and use this platform to help young girls? One thing that's been huge on my heart is adoption and like teen moms. So for me, I'm like, I want to do something more. How can I get involved? Can I go ahead and share an organization that I believe in? Can I go ahead and raise money for a foundation? Can I take mission trips and vlog about it and raise awareness for situations across the world? So for me, the underlying of our faith and what we believe in is everything. Otherwise, I would probably have just been like, let's just do this to make money, you know, and then that's it. It has to be everything. Otherwise, I will be so self-focused and self-centered that I'll be 80 years old and have nothing to show for, you know? So I do feel like, sorry if that rabbit trailed, that is the underlying to everything, hopefully, that we do. We're learning. It's not perfect. And, you know, sometimes a lot of the videos will be like, people will be like, oh, you're just doing that for views or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that one came off as that, but it has to be more. Has to be more. I'm just still figuring it out. So I'm hoping, like, I'm going to go to a gala for a home in LA in 2 weeks that they take in girls who choose to carry out their pregnancy and give birth to their children in really hard situations. So I'm hoping to get involved in that. Another organization that helps babies on the border. I'm hoping that this coming year can be a lot about investing and giving back. I feel like for me, that the religion and our faith and everything else is all the basis of that for us, you know. Otherwise, it's easy to just be self-focused.
And I think you boiled it down to 3 really great words that kind of describe everything, which is let's do more.
Yes. Yep. Like, we need more, and my kids need to know there's more. They need to know that, like, life will just be way too harsh to them if they think it's all about them all the time. So I want them to be compassionate. I want them to see someone who's hurting and feel that with them, and not just feel so desensitized because we're so inwardly focused. So it's a tough thing to teach in this world, in where we live, in how we live, you know, with things at our fingertips. So it's a balance. And if I know it's a struggle for me, I can only imagine how it would be a struggle for my children. So for me, I have to surround myself with people that constantly remind me to do more, to be better, and to remember purpose. So
you talk a lot about adoption. And actually, when I search Slyfox, one of the top search terms that comes up is Slyfox adoption. You've got several videos about ovulation tests, pregnancy tests, babies,
yes,
adoption. Are you thinking about adoption? I mean, I'm going to go for that personal, private, I'm going to ask the uncomfortable questions, right?
No, if I'm going to put it out on the internet, then it's not obviously that private, you know? So for me, that's what I test it to. I'm like, hey, nothing is off limits that I'm willing to put out there for everyone to see. So there's actually been a handful of people that have problems with how we've positioned ourselves. I've gotten into conversations and had to email people and talk to them. And sometimes they do take the time. Adoption is huge in our family. I actually have 3 adopted siblings. All my siblings are African American. I grew up with kids in and out of our home. My family was a foster care family. Like, I'm the only biological child from my family. So adoption has always been something huge on my heart. I wanted to go do mission work in Uganda since I was like 14 years old. So it's been something that kind of was cool because my husband also had that. So 2 different things, adoption, and then I'll touch on the ovulation and pregnancy stuff. We actually had a failed adoption when Jaden was 1 year old. We adopted a little girl, paid all the fees, went through a home, like everything was good. I was the first one to hold that baby. The mom gave her up. We had her for about 3 days, and then the mom took her back. So that to me was almost like we were not going to have any more children. You know, we didn't have Cass till a couple of years later. There's a big age difference between Cass and Jaden. So adoption kind of was hard for me again. It wasn't until just a couple years ago that Andrew and I started feeling again like we wanted to do this. Only Andrew started feeling more drawn towards foster care. So we've been open and vocal about everything with it. We've been up and down on the roller coaster. I think that is one thing that I would change, is the fact that we have been open for the ups and downs of how we feel. Maybe 1 month we'll feel like, yes, we're adopting and we're going to do foster care, but the next month we won't. It looks kind of like this roller coaster, and we take everybody with it, like through it with us. So I think that maybe now going forward, I would change that. I wouldn't be so up and down. If we ever felt like adopting again, I don't think we would share anything until it was final, just because I realized that a lot of how things looked and how we positioned the situations looked as if we were being insensitive to it. And I get it. I get how people can think that. I think it's funny when people say that I'm just doing it for whatever. I mean, I grew up with foster kids, and my siblings are all adopted, and I had a failed adoption. So it's not like I'm speaking from nothing. This has been a huge part for us. So I think that we are not close to adoption or foster care in the future. It scares me. It scares me a lot, because it would change all the dynamics. But I know the drive and the desire is so deeply rooted in us still that I feel like I can't ignore it. We can't ignore it. I don't know how it's going to look. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to end up, who knows, like sponsoring a couple of kids, or maybe we will foster care, or maybe we'll end up adopting. I have no clue. So that's where I am with that. And then on the ovulation side and on the pregnancy side, Andrew and I decided probably like a year and a half ago, we wanted to try getting pregnant again. Andrew has type 1 diabetes. So we did find out that it was a little harder. Obviously, I'm older, in my 30s. And then with diabetes, since he was 13 years old, it starts like obviously affecting him as well. So we tried for a couple months on my high ovulation time, and that didn't work out for us. And I think we probably could have done more, figured out more situations, and maybe tried different things, but I'm not sure where we're at. Right now, today, when I'm speaking, I could tell you that I don't want to have another baby of my own. I have an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old, so I feel like we're at a good position, but I do still feel the ache to have maybe an adopt or a foster care. But like I said, if you did look up our name, and a lot of things come up under adoption and ovulation and pregnancy. Also, YouTube, in the beginning, all that stuff was so trendy. You can't help but get caught up in the trends if you don't know. And that's another thing that I've learned is be careful to test the trends morally, what you think, before you dive into them. Then it's hard to get not caught up in views and everything else. So you have to always,
in terms of what content you put out, right?
Yep.
And that's where a lot of family channels have ended up getting in trouble,
right.
For the types of things that they've done with their kids, where you're saying like topically.
Oh yeah. And people have been shut down. I mean, there's been families that are just shut down because of the content they put out there, and you have to just check yourself. Like you literally have to, I like having friends that aren't in YouTube. They help me with my moral compass, because they say, well, what do you think about that? And I'll just be like, oh, like I didn't even think about that. You get caught up and you're like, it's kind of crazy because it's your job, but at the same time, it's very personal. This is your family, and we're not putting on a fake reality comedy skit series. We're saying this is our real life. So it's one of those things that you have to figure out, like, okay, we're not comfortable showing the kids crying anymore. If my kids start crying, the camera goes off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it was 100% different a year and a half ago. That was what you did. Everybody did that. And you started checking yourself later. Why did this kind of stuff happen? Was this allowed? And then you just you can find yourself back then, you can find yourself just thinking that it's the normal. Like I said, we all grow in life, and we all like figure out what's the best for us. And like, I feel like even aside from being a YouTuber or being out in the public eye, I do that in general. Like where I'm at now is maybe 100% different than where I was at a couple of years ago. And that's just from learning in life. So it's just harder when you're in the public eye.
And with social media specifically, there's been a lot of growing up that's had to happen across all the platforms, in the sense of the types of content that's been produced and what's trending. And it's been the wild, wild west.
It is. And it's like I said, I feel like the biggest problem is not when a teenage boy decides to do whatever content he wants, if it's nasty or whatever, like that sucks, but that affects him. It's different. It's 100% different when you're a family channel and you have your kids in it. and you've like essentially they become little child actors, especially if your channel does well. You know what I mean? So you have to figure out, but it's so personal, you know, like this is it's not just like they go check into a set and leave and all the stuff behind it is like not shown. It's like, you just have to figure it out. And that's another thing that I'm so thankful for, the fact that we, you know, our Christian family, is that we can check it morally for ourselves. I can talk to people. I can try and listen, and I can say it's because of what we believe and how we feel. And this is where we're at for our family. And people might show things that I might not show, you know what I mean? But it's a tricky balance that I'm still trying to learn and figure out.
I'm Mormon, or LDS. And
yes,
one of the things I really appreciate about being active in a faith is the constant exercise of checking in with yourself and what you're doing,
yes.
basically.
Yep.
So for me, that looks like when I'm at church each Sunday and I'm taking that time to sit and reflect on whether it's the week or a topic or whatever it is, there's kind of a constant checking in with like, how am I doing? You know, what path am I on? Am I listening? That kind of stuff.
It's good. It's a test, and it helps, and it like keeps you kind of on track a little bit, is what I like to think of it.
Well, we talked about both of you guys growing up in a religious family, and also that you grew up with siblings who were adopted, a little bit about you guys as kids. Tell me this. We have a question we ask every guest, and it is, what is your Ratatouille? And basically there's a scene in the movie Ratatouille where there's the food critic at the end takes a bite of Ratatouille, and the smell and the taste of it takes him back to being a child. And that nostalgic experience of maybe walking into his family home growing up and all of that. So do you have a Ratatouille? Is there a sight or a smell or a taste that takes you back to your childhood?
So my Ratatouille would be my mom's enchiladas. She has made them for me on my birthday since before I could remember. And it's kind of funny because even when I go into restaurants and I order an enchilada, the one thing that comes into my mind is, are they going to taste like my mom's? I'm not sure there's like anything incredible or like special about them. It's just, she made them. She knew that was my birthday request dinner, so she would always make them. And I would have to say that does bring me back to that memory of how special that would make me feel.
I love that. Who has the best enchiladas outside of your mom's kitchen?
Okay, so there is this place in Brea in Orange County. I'm not even sure they're probably good anymore, but I just remember how amazing they are. It's called The Whole Enchilada. It's in Brea, California. I grew up going there with my family. I even ran into a cactus.
So it's dangerous.
It is dangerous. So careful of the cactuses. They bite, but they do have good enchiladas. And then there's another place in Tennessee at the Opry Mall, and it's called Chewy's, and they have incredible enchiladas too.
Okay, well, next time you're in town here in Salt Lake, I got a couple spots.
Oh, take me. I'm in. Let's go.
We'll see if we can hook you up with some really good enchiladas.
Oh, I would love it. That's my favorite.
All right. Now, before we let you go and before I tempt you to Salt Lake City with enchiladas, because I would say we have very good Mexican food here.
Okay, I got that. You just don't have white queso. We don't have white queso in Salt Lake because I lived there for a couple of years and we couldn't find white queso.
I've never heard of white queso.
What? You got to go to Tennessee.
Fine.
Yeah, I'll take you to Tennessee and have white queso. You take me back to Salt Lake and we'll have enchiladas.
Done. Okay, now in the meantime, but before we reunite for our enchiladas, where can people follow you online? Where are the best spots? YouTube, obviously.
Yeah, YouTube. And then my Instagram handle is Hannah Slyfox. My kids obviously have one too, my husband. And then we do have a clothing line that is getting ready to relaunch called Slyfox Threads. That'll relaunch probably hopefully by the 1st of next year. It's in a transition stage right now. So, but I have like all kinds of family stuff on that.
Yeah, love it. And your Instagrams are fabulous.
Thank you.
Juicy and Erica, also known as Josh and Addie, are keeping up with your kids that way.
Perfect. So. Cass always talks about Juicy, so we got to get them FaceTiming or something soon.
Yeah, we got to get them working on their beards.
Perfect. I'm in.
Okay, well, we will talk again soon, hopefully over enchiladas. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
As always, you can get the show notes and features at todaysmama.com. Remember to like, rate, subscribe, all the things. We'll catch you next week, and thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Today's Mama podcast with Rachael Hersher. To find out more, go to todaysmama.com. That's today's, MAMA.com. Today's Mama. connecting moms and families with the best of today.